Hello and welcome to Oakland A's Moneyball Rebuild Extended. I'm BigIrrelevant, and you're going to find this is going to be kind of a new experience, I think, based on what I see a lot of YouTubers and rebuilds do. So, if you have not yet watched Part 1 and Part 2 of the Oakland A's Moneyball Rebuild, take 1 second. And now, hopefully, if you have not gone back and clicked on one of those two videos, you know that this is our extended period. This is the part that I promised at the end of part 2, in which we are going to do kind of a career sim. Now, one thing that I don't see a lot of YouTubers do in their rebuilds is they don't really go beyond what they finish with when they win the World Series, the championship, whatever ends up, or Super Bowl, depending on whatever sport they're doing. They never go on and actually see how these players' careers end up being affected by what they did and how and who they were. We've kind of created a few profiles. We have some unique players that are going to be interesting, and I want to do something that's a little bit different, and we're gonna kind of career sim our players like Joe Garcia and Julio Juarez and Kenny James and see what those guys end up being, as well as look at some of the franchise guys that were big pieces that are a little bit older, like a Mason Miller or a Brent Rooker or even a Munetaka Murakami. And we're going to go through their future and see what they can become, what stats they end up putting up together, what teams they go to, how many World Series they all win, as well as taking a look at what the Oakland A's do in that amount of time as well. So this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to kind of time lapse ourselves through this, where I'm going to follow the Oakland A's. We're going to take our hands off the wheel. They are no longer going to be restricted to the budget constraints. They are no longer going to be constricted to pretty much anything that we were forcing ourselves to do. And they're also dealing with an insane farm system that we happen to build up for them. So they're going to be in a really good position to win several Super Bowls. Oh my God, World Series, several World Series in their time. So we can see if they succeed or disappoint. Also, within every single player, our big pieces, we're going to kind of take a look at through the future. Any big trades or transactions that they make, any big signings. You know, is Joe Garcia going to sign with the Dodgers whenever his contract's up for $500 million? Or is he going to re-sign and stay in Oakland and be a lifer with Oakland? Probably not. But we're going to take those trades, signings. We're going to look at how many awards they win. And then we're going to see them at the end of their careers when they retire. Garcia will probably end up being the last big one that we see. And just see what ends up they do, what they end up doing, if we make any Hall of Famers from our run. So this will be kind of like a career sim video. If you watch some of those, like from people like Ant Ortiz, or in an NBA fashion, like a Click Productions, but kind of my own way of doing it. So we'll move forward, and I hope you enjoy. We'll remind you what this team looks like as we take a look at it. So to take a look at our post-World Series Oakland A's roster, what we are gifting the new general manager of this Oakland A's team is kind of insane. So starting pitching wise, they are going to be a little bit limited on a few of these contracts that are going to be coming up in the next year or so with Tiedemann and Dollander, but they really are in a really good position. They have a lot of really top-end pitchers there that end up being in the rotation, plus all of these prospects that we drafted. Art Blackburn, Kenny James, Julio Juarez. I think we traded for Echevarria. Gold we drafted, Granum we drafted, Iwamura is probably going to be like not even make the league. Duncan Gross we drafted, Santiago, Alvarez, Bernard, Tanaka. Like, this is a crazy stockpile of really good pitchers that there could be a guy like Julio Juarez who will not end up making the team despite being the first overall pick in 2025. Relievers, obviously one guy we're going to want to take a look at is Reggie Crawford, because as a two-way, it's just interesting. A two-way reliever is kind of crazy to me. It'll be kind of fun to take a look at him. Looks like they used him a lot more than we did, but Reggie Crawford, interesting guy. Maybe he is somebody who should be a starter, and we could go in and readjust and make him a real two-way guy as a starting pitcher. No real guys that we drafted here. Relievers, we have an insane set of bullpen guys that could end up being really good. A guy like Tim Lawrence is an A potential 87, still hasn't even touched the majors, meaning they have 6 years of team control. At catcher, we have Soderstrom here, who has a little bit of time left, Gehrig, and then you also have Jay Justice, that really high potential catcher that we drafted in like the 7th round that I said like we won't see him until he's 30. Tyler Black still here. You have Domingo Ayala, who we drafted pretty early on. He'll probably end up being Rule 5'd and just taken by somebody else. Luis Ariz is still here for a little while. Still have 2 more years on his deal. He'll probably end up being gone because they have Norby, who has played just a little bit. Torin. There's just so many players here that they're going to be gifted. Like, this is a 1st overall pick. This was also, I believe, or a 1st round pick. I think he was a 1st round pick that we traded for. First round pick in the 1st year. Like, 1st round pick. There's 5 1st round pick shortstops. Left fielder, he's like a 90-something potential left fielder who should end up taking the spot. You have Ayala, you have Logan, who was a 1st rounder, you have Garcia, who's a 1st rounder, Jenkins is a 1st rounder. Like, even Derek Walker is a later round pick. So they're in a pretty good position looking at this team. But the other thing they have to kind of take a look at in regards to where this goes is they're going to run out of positions. Like AAA, you've got Art Blackburn all the way down here right now. You've got Julio Flores in AA. So that is kind of the team that we're going to be taking a look and following along with. We'll see what they can do, see if they can win some more World Series. But really, it's kind of like, I hope that they can. If they can't, that's embarrassing for the CPU. So we'll advance through a season, see what they end up doing, and come back and just kind of watch along and see what the A's do as we follow our Moneyball Extended franchise. I'm just saying words at this point. So I've simmed 3 seasons so far to kind of take a look at what we've gotten, and I've just simmed them season by season. The A's have kind of torn down what we built for them already, and in that time, they've actually gotten better. They have just won the MVP, or not won MVP, they just won a World Series, so they've gotten 2 now for a lot of their players. This is 2033. Johnny Logan with a World Series MVP coming up and hitting 444. The other thing that I want to show you is like 114 wins for Oakland. They actually lost a lot of games at the end of the season too, in order to kind of get that. So pitching rotation, they've already moved a lot of guys. This is what they're kind of dealing with right now. Julio Flores is up at the top, Santiago, James Blackburn, a lot of the guys that we drafted are there. In the lineup, it's basically all these guys that we drafted. They've let almost all the veterans go. Chase Dolander did win a Cy Young in 2031, and Garcia won the MVP in 2032, and actually Julio Flores was the runner-up for the Cy Young this past season. So 3 years in, just taking a look at what they did, they've basically gotten rid of all of our veterans, but in that time, they've also kind of, they've won a World Series, so that's a success, I think, for them. Crazy Hall of Fame class too, right here. We got Francisco Lindor, Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, and Nolan Arenado all retiring at the exact same time. Judge getting over 600 home runs, Mookie with 545. None of them getting to the 3,000 hit club, but 3 guys with 400 plus home runs. That's a pretty good run for a Hall of Fame class, 2033. You're telling me this is the deal you get? This is what you take in order to leave Oakland? That amount of money? An MVP, 2 World Series, and this is all it takes to get you to leave? I don't know what the Oakland GM's doing, but he's obviously not paying him enough if somehow the Phillies got him on this kind of deal. But see you later, Joe Garcia. Hope you have a good life. 2034 comes with the Cy Young Award for Frank Santiago, as well as an what? Who is that? What? Okay, who? Abimelech Ortiz? Just okay, a 32-year-old first baseman. I guess Domingo Ayala never made the team. All right, but I feel like we also do need to show that Joe Garcia did happen to win an MVP. So even though we got an MVP, Garcia did too, hitting 38 home runs. Also, Julio Flores, runner-up for the Cy Young, too. So Santiago gets it. Julio gets the runner-up. Grayson Rodriguez, by the way, has gotten runner-up a couple times over here, too. So A couple guys that we've had that we could still have if I was the GM. I don't know what you're doing. That's a third World Series for the Oakland A's, 2035. So in 2030, 2033, and 2035, the Oakland A's have won a World Series, this time with a little bit of a different lineup than we had in the last ones. Palma's still here, Padilla's here. Actually, they've kept Montgomery around for the most part. The only, they went and made a signing for Aiden Miller, a couple other guys, but like a lot of these guys are the same. The big thing is that the pitching rotation, they've kept and they've actually locked down long term. So Blackburn, James, Santiago, Alvarez is not, but Julio is. Like, they've locked everybody down long term in the starting rotation, so this team should stay good. I wonder how many they'll win like this, especially as I know that the lineup is going to continue to get worse. But hey, that's 3 World Series for these guys, specifically for Kenny James, who has been on this team the whole time. Juarez and the other guys don't necessarily get the credit for that. Actually, if I look at the lineup, Palma is the only other guy that gets the credit for it, even despite not necessarily being the greatest. But hey, 3 World Series for him, 3 World Series for Colson Montgomery, 3 World Series for actually, and then Kenny James. That's it, actually, now that I look at it. So yeah, that's 3 for them. We're gonna get starting to approach some retirements as we kind of go on, and we'll take a look at some actual recaps of individual players too. One of the first players to retire, looking at our Oakland A's and kind of a recap of these mainstays, was our MVP winner in 2027, Brent Rooker. He played several seasons, was I think a 2017 draft pick by Minnesota. We picked him up, had the 1 year that came before our sim with a 30 home run season for Oakland. And then he had 4 really good years for us here, 32 home runs in 2024, 31 and 25, 28 and 26, and then his MVP season with 46 and 27. He went to Houston, got a little bit worse every year, had a kind of a poor 2028. So look, we talked about not signing him and recreating him in the aggregate, and I think we did a good job at that because we didn't sign him. He got worse every year, fell out of the league, came back from Milwaukee, hit 25 there, 14 again, ended up with 277 career home runs. Pretty good career for a guy who got picked up off the waiver wire by Oakland. An MVP and 277 career home runs. That's a great career for him. He is going to be ending here in 2035. He's not going to get signed again, so I just figured I looked him up, wanted to make sure where he was. But yeah, that's Brent Rooker. You know a guy we were right on? Jay Langoliers. Did he ever learn to hit? Nope. Not at all. Not once. He had 1 semi-decent season being a platoon catcher. Never learned how to hit. So, hey, we didn't swing and miss on all the guys that we thought that we traded away. Looks like Shea Langoliers never ended up being that good. I don't think you're ready. I don't think you're ready. This guy never played for us. But this is some of the most insane stats I've ever seen in a sim. Ever. Like, I don't know. Mike Trout hit 804 home runs in his career. He had 3,565 hits. Like, that is insane. Awards, he had 4 MVPs. He won one in 2033 with the Brewers. Like, just what? He has how many All-Stars is that? 20 All-Stars, 5 Hank Aaron Awards. He won the home run championship in 2033 with 48 home runs. Like, I don't even know. Like, that's insane. That is insane. Yeah, safe to say he made the Hall of Fame at that. He played like 25 years. That's crazy. 2039. We got an MVP for Derek Walker, one of the late round picks that we got. You can see Joe Garcia right down there in 3rd. I think we made the right decision. Actually, we didn't do anything because technically the other GM did it. Also, this guy's kind of been insane. Derek Walker, like, we got another MVP there. Wait, Josh Cutliff? I think we traded him. I think this was a guy that we had at some point. Okay, cool. So there we go. There's another MVP for us. Also, it is 2039. The A's have made every single playoffs. Now, they have not won. They've made it to the ALCS 3 times. They have not won since 2035. But, hey, they're still making the playoffs, keeping a playoff streak. They made it to the World Series. They lost, but they made it. Who was even their playoff MVP? Tyler Rossi. Okay. I think we drafted him. So, still guys that we have. But hey, we made the World Series. So that's 4 World Series appearances, 3 wins. Losing 2 years in a row. Well, hey, they made it again. So 2040, that's another loss, but that's, 5 appearances. Not bad. What is bad is getting reverse swept, though. Blowing a 3-0 lead. Pretty bad. But that marks the end of the career of Luis Arias. Ended up having a pretty good career. So we had him for that entire length of that contract that we ran for. He got the 1 World Series with us. He went over to Milwaukee after that. Had some pretty consistent years. Had another great year at the top. If you notice, it's actually something he kind of does. Every once in a while, he has one really, really good hit season. Looks like 2032 was one of them. Then he kind of dipped off. Had one more good year in 2036 where he hit 290. Even his last season, he hit 300. He hit 333 in 399. Like, they should have given him another shot. He ends up with 3,082 hits, 211 home runs. An average for a career of 300. We can hope that maybe that's a Hall of Fame career for Luis Arias. He had 3 batting titles, playoff MVP. I mean, it's at some point you just gotta maybe. So we'll take a look. Maybe he'll make the Hall of Fame. Moment of truth for Luis Arias. Not a Hall of Famer. I think he'd be a Hall of Famer. 3,000 hits. I feel like that's deserving the Hall of Fame. MLB The Show doesn't think so, but I'm going to give him a Hall of Fame nod right there. So, 1 Hall of Famer for us. Technically none, but I think he deserves it. Connor Norby retired. He never came up for us till 2029, but played a couple roles there. Played in Oakland until 2034, so he got 2 World Series with us, and then went to LA, and then went to New York, and then retired. Didn't really have much of a career. I think that's a lot of that is to do with us stashing him in the minors for so long and taking advantage of all those option years. But he played till he was 40. Well, not really. He played till 2036, so he played till he was 36. But hey, he got 8-year career. So Connor Norby. Jacob Wilson retires at the age of 39. I think he missed a couple seasons there at the end. Ended up having a pretty good career. First round pick in 2023, technically, a real life draft pick. Ended up with 1,800 career hits, good 14-year career. He played with us from 2026 to 2031, so we got the 1 World Series with us. I don't think St. Louis won any. Boston didn't win any. He had one more year with us in Oakland, but didn't win there. But hey, he had a pretty good career. 1,800 hits, 223 home runs for us. Put together 6 good seasons while we had team control over him, and yeah, played better when he was in St. Louis. Granted, he was better when he left us, but hey, good for Jacob Wilson. Retires at the age of 39. Another kind of crazy one I want to show you that we didn't have either that was on our team is Emmanuel Clase. So he had 5 Reliever of the Year awards. We kind of watched that every time we looked at the awards when we were kind of trying to follow Mason Miller. He ended with 618 career saves. I think the record is 652. So if he was the reliever for 2036 or 2037 for Cleveland, he could have gotten it. They didn't give him that shot, which kind of sucks. Hey, if he played in 2020, maybe he would have gotten it. Who knows? 618. I wonder if he'll end up being the Hall of Fame. 600 save clubs, very, very small. So maybe he'll have a shot. I think that he deserves it, and I would consider him a chance to. He's a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame at 618 saves, 5 Reliever of the Year awards. But we'll see when they actually show the winners. Chase Dollander retired. So he was one of our pitchers that we made a trade for when we actually made our run. He retires at the age of 40, played 4 years in Colorado, where he's actually from. And then we had him for 3 seasons. He got his World Series with us, and he also got a Cy Young in 2031. We kind of mentioned that before. Went to Miami and just kind of regressed pretty quickly when he was in Miami. I don't know if that's he probably doesn't have a Cy Young worthy career, but hey, a Cy Young, a World Series, that's a pretty good career for a pitcher like Chase Dollander. George Gary, he was one of the relievers that we had. He blew a save in one of the playoff runs that we made that kind of made me upset and moved him into more of a holding position rather than starting because of his bad performance like in 2031 there. But 2030, he won us a World Series being our closer, and then in 2033 and 35 he won 2 more World Series being just kind of in the bullpen. Then he went over to Detroit and then retired there. So decent career for George Gary. He's got 3 World Series as a reliever and 1 as a closer. Crazy up and down ERA though. 2.8, 9, 7, 2.7, 7, then 3. What is this guy? So is the end of the Munetaka Murakami career. Obviously, this is probably one of the more controversial signings that I made, simply just because of the roster that I picked. This was, we ended up having a lot of the KBO guys and some of the guys that were in that World Baseball Classic, which allowed me to sign Murakami for really cheap. We took advantage of that. He had a pretty good career for us. He played here till 2030, won the World Series with us, and then left and went to St. Louis. It was decent in his time. He ended up getting 273 career home runs, a good amount of them after. He had 33 in 2036 with Texas. I think he also won a World Series. I believe Texas won one of these too. 2036 and 2037. So he got 2 World Series technically because he did leave us and then go win one with Texas as well. So decent career for Murakami. Doesn't look like a Hall of Famer, but I think if you were to add his stats that he got over in the KBO as well, it would end up being a pretty good overall career. We're going to imagine that that's where he went in 2038. He went back to Japan and went to go play there. The first draft pick that we made in this entire rebuild was Mark Palma, the shortstop out of Illinois. He did not come up for us until 2029. Honestly, he could have came way earlier. This is one of the side effects of doing a rebuild in which our goal is to, I guess, lose, not really lose, but like save money, not let guys play as much as they should. He didn't come up until 2029 and kind of played a platoon role. He did get 3 World Series with us, which is good. He got 3 World Series with us. He didn't have a crazy career. I think he also got, no, he didn't, because White Sox won in 2037 or 2038. So he didn't get those either. But I mean, decent career for Mark Palma. I kind of wish that he would have stayed around. He went to Baltimore, ended up being pretty decent there, but it just, you know, I feel like he should have been a focal point to the team. But hey, new GM didn't necessarily think that the guys that I kept were very valuable or very important. So he won 2, I won 1. So I can't say anything about my decisions. He did more in 6 years than I did. So Mark Palma, decent career for him. Should have been better, but oh well. Alex Soderstrom also retired. So he was an interesting one where we sent him back down in 2024. We kind of platooned him for a couple years, and we brought him up in 2030. And he ended up being very, very good for us there. And even in the year after, he was a power hitting catcher. That's not something you get very often. Then he went to the Angels for several seasons and continued to hit for power until he kind of regressed in 2035 and fell off and started being more of a platoon again. But, decent career for Tyler Soderstrom. Played 12 seasons in baseball. Wish it was a little bit better. I can also look right here. Daniel Susac, one of the other catchers. This is one that we traded away. In this case, did much worse. So I think Soderstrom ended up having a better career than Langoliers, than Susac. And I didn't see McCann because McCann retired right away. So he retired in 2030. So I didn't catch his retirement thing. But I think of the 4 catchers in that system, Soderstrom ended up being the best one. Now, the only other one is Jay Justice, who technically never played for us and never was going to. So we'll have to check him when he retires. But yeah, I think he did pretty well. So good for Soderstrom. Also, I just want to look here. This is Oliver Smith. This was the first guy that we traded. He ended up having a really, really good career in Baltimore once he got there, but he didn't play very long. I think that's also a part of the fact that we traded him so late. So, because I think we traded him in 2029. He was the Grayson Rodriguez trade, and then he came up and played for like 2 seasons for them, and was good, but hey, that's what happens. Guys, no Hall of Fame for Munetaka Murakami or Clase either. They gave it to Gunnar though. So, I mean, dude, 581 home runs, almost got to 3,000 hits for Gunnar. We're repping him right now, but he didn't play for us. So, also, Yankee Hall of Fame? Come on. The Orioles did kind of fumble the bag in this. They didn't win like anything, so. Said it was important that we needed to know what Reggie Crawford would end up doing in his career, and sadly, it didn't end up being that impressive. Like, as a two-way guy, I just kind of wish that he would have done more. Looks like he did most of his stuff with us, but he still only hit 10 career home runs. Hit pretty well. I mean, his playoff stats were crazy because the playoff run that we made, he hit a home run in like a walk-off. So, I mean, hey, that's what a two-way reliever looks like. At the age of 41, shortstop Colson Montgomery retires. Started his career in Chicago. We made that weird trade at the deadline in 2028 for him. We're getting Colson Montgomery. He had an amazing career. Ended with 2,400 hits, 357 home runs, 1,268 RBIs. He played 4.5 years with Chicago, then won the World Series in 2030, won it in 2035, and won it in 2033. So won those 3 with us, and played amazing. Like, look at the 2035 season. He had 314. That's he didn't win the MVP that year, but could have. 2037, he wins another World Series in Chicago, and then he kind of bounces around a little bit, and I don't think they won one in 20. They might have won another one in 2038, so he might have legit won 5 World Series. Colson Montgomery, just amazing career for him. 5 World Series, 2,400 hits. I'd put him in the Hall of Fame right now. Now, whether or not it would be in an Oakland jersey or Chicago jersey is the real question. He played 1, 2, 3, I think 7 seasons for us, and 6 seasons for them. So here's the question. Now, will they MLB The Show put him in the Hall of Fame? I don't know, but I would. With that kind of career, I think that would be worthy of a Hall of Fame run. 5 World Series and one of them being the MVP. So great career for Colson Montgomery. Was a fantastic pickup when we got him. Like, he was great. So shout out Colson Montgomery. MLB The Show did not want to give him a Hall of Fame. Okay. That's the third guy that I would have given a Hall of Fame thing to. 2 of them being mine. So I don't know how biased I really am. I'm going to need to hear your opinions in the comments. The next former Oakland A to go is Felipe Ayala. 2 seasons with us. Then he went, then we brought, or 2 seasons with Kansas City. Then we brought him in. He had an amazing first season for us, hitting 301. He had 1 ring in 2030, and then another one in 2033. Then he went to Milwaukee, and overall had a pretty good career. 1,700 hits, 189 home runs, 316 stolen bases. He was a speed threat when we had him. Did get the playoff MVP in 2033 and the batting title in 2035. I didn't even look. 318 that year with Milwaukee. So a good career for Felipe Ayala. Felipe Ayala. I can't pronounce words or names. Red Gold at one point was an 82 overall. The dude never played in the majors at all. He had 4 days in the majors in 2043. 4 days. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Red Gold. I'm sorry what we did to you. If anybody else drafted you, you might have had a career. That's my fault. And you too, Duncan Gross. Same thing. At least you lasted 6 days. You could have played, maybe. You didn't, but maybe. I'm sorry. So you're telling me the second round pick and the third round pick from 2025 never play at all, but the sixth round pick from 2027 does? Hey, you know what? Good for you, Steve Russ. Good for you. Ricky Tiedemann, he played 4 years. We traded for him. He got our one World Series in 2030. Then he went off to Arizona. Had a decent career. Played for a long time. Got over 2,000 strikeouts in his career. Over 2,000 innings in his career. Ended up being pretty good. Like decent at least. 4 ERA. No stud. Nothing insane. But hey, good career for Ricky Tiedemann. I think this is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's Mason Miller time. And, yeah. 706 saves. Breaks the saves record. Played for 20 seasons. I think he was pretty legit. Had 2.8 ERA. 1,100 strikeouts as a closer. 706 saves. Like, look at this. A career. So he played with us until 2028 when we traded him in the Chase Dollander deal. And then we got in Colorado, he had season after season after season after season. He was phenomenal. He started to fall off a little bit here where he had 4. They moved him to a setup role, and then they kind of had one season here where they brought him back, setup role, closer. I signed him last season or in 2043 simply because I wanted that I wanted him to end in that A's uniform, because just in case he makes it to the Hall of Fame, he would get the A's logo like I think he deserves. He had 12 All-Star appearances, only 1 reliever of the year though. Had a great career, but it's crazy that he only had 1 season where he got it. I mean, look at these seasons. It's 1.4 ERA, 1.9, 1.8, 1.59. Like, this is the year he got the reliever of the year award for. And honestly, the year after was better. He had, up until the Kansas City year, he was even hitting the 1.9 still. Like, he had an insane career for us. He had 1 really bad year, and it was the year with us in 2028. So hopefully his replacement, Fred Sable, also retires same time. 376 career saves for him. Started his in Detroit. We traded him with Daniel Stewart. I think we got 2 relievers in that deal. I think we also got Quincy Stark in that deal too. And then he played for us for several years. He got 2 World Series with the 2030 and the 2033 team. Then he went to Baltimore, had a pretty decent career, and then basically stopped playing in 2040. But 376 saves, not as good as Mason Miller, not as good as Clase, but hey, good career for Fred Sable. One more closer on that team, Daniel Stewart, also retires. So he retires, we had 2 seasons there. He was in Chicago before that. Had 2 seasons with us here. Didn't really do much for us, just in the reliever role. We traded him in the Tiedemann deal, and he ended up with 406 career saves. A lot of seasons over in St. Louis. I signed him, I guess, as well. He signed here at the end of his career with a 5.4. So 400 saves for Daniel Stewart. We had an insane bullpen if you start to really think at how many saves we had in that of the relievers we had in those years in a row. I mean, we also had this guy, Tim Lawrence, was also there. He retired 2033, one of the World Series year. He had 55 saves. He was a closer that year. Look at an 0.78 ERA in 2032. That is crazy. So this bullpen that we had at this time span is kind of ridiculous to think of just how much talent we had there in that group. Didn't have as good of a career as the other guys, but also just another crazy reliever to have in the same time. He made it. Not for us, but he made it. And you know what? I respect that. That's okay. He got 706 saves, broke the record, 2.83 ERA for a career. I'm glad that somebody officially made the Hall of Fame from our team. So, shout out Mason Miller. We're pretty much now to where we're just going to start looking up and just seeing how all those pitchers that we had and then we drafted end up looking. One of those guys that we drafted was Brian Bernard. Ended up having a decent career for a guy who we never played. He played 8 seasons in Minnesota. Ended up doing pretty decent once he actually got there. Probably a guy who could have played 5 years earlier had we moved him when we should have. But hey, when you stockpile assets, that's why the Rule 5 draft exists. Kevin Alvarez, one of the pitchers that kind of suffered from, once again, us just storing guys forever. Played one, got his one World Series with us, but otherwise did really nothing. So, sorry, Kevin. Domingo Ayala, he didn't play till 2036, and he played 4 seasons. Played pretty well, and then was basically out of the league. But hey, one of our first picks in the draft, and just kind of did nothing. So, Tyler Black. All right, so he was a first baseman that we traded for in 2025, or maybe 26. I can't remember which year we traded for him specifically. But he played pretty well for us when we had him. We had him for during the World Series run the first time. Was a good first baseman. He went to Minnesota. Ended up having a pretty decent career there too. So, hey, good career for Tyler Black. Ended with 287 career home runs. Pretty good for a guy who basically was pretty much out of the league when we picked him up. Like, he wasn't going to play for anybody. So that's kind of why we got him. And hey, I think we revived his career. Kurt Blackburn, he was the 2nd round pick in our 2024 draft. He didn't make his way up until 2029, where I kind of played around with his innings. He didn't really perform very well when he came up. When I drafted him, he was a 61 overall with 93 potential. So he seemed like a guy who was really going to be a long-term fit for us. In our season, he came up in 2030, ended up being decent, 3.7 ERA. He came up only for 7 games in 2031, where they put him in the bullpen, and he had a 0.55 ERA, and then they took him out. But he played for us for a while. He got 3 World Series with us, and was even there on one of the losses in 2039. Good career for him. Probably should have been better for a 2nd round pick with the potential that he had, but you know, this stretch right here, especially like 2037, like that's a really good year. I think he finished 2nd in Cy Young like twice, I want to say. So he didn't get any hardware, but had a good enough career anyways. So, well, besides the World Series rings, those are good hardware to have. Quincy Stark, he was a guy that we traded for, was one of the first, I think he was in the first draft that we kind of missed and didn't take him. We traded for him, and kind of an innings eater, had 3,000 innings over his career, had 2,400 strikeouts, and for us, he won 2 World Series. So, you know, good career for Quincy Stark. He played 16 seasons. I was glad to have him. I think he was the runner-up in the Cy Young like a couple times as well. Like he had a fantastic career. A couple like two ERA seasons, or in the 2s, which, hey, that's good to see for a guy who we just traded for, made a good signing and 2 All-Star appearances. So shout out Quincy Stark. Our 2nd first-round pick in the 2025 draft, Philip Tanaka. Once again, we just had kind of I think it was that 2025 draft entirely. We talked a little bit about this during that draft. That was the draft we had the 1st overall pick, and pretty much everybody in the draft got screwed. They weren't that good, or they just never really got a shot for us. That was Rhett Gold, Duncan Gross, Philip Tanaka, and Julio Juarez will probably be next. We'll show him soon here, but not an insane career. He got his World Series in 2035, but yeah, I mean, he never really he never got to start. He basically was a reliever. Honestly, I think if I would have switched him to a reliever, he would have had more opportunities in the major leagues. But it is what it is. He played a pivotal role in 2035, and good for him. Donnell Haynes had a long career. What? He didn't play until 2033. By the way, if you don't remember, Donnell Haynes was I think the 6th round pick in 2026, and he played 9 years, 130 home runs. Good for Donnell Haynes. Played mostly for the Yankees, but hey, I'm surprised to see, I guess really the position guys all played longer, but it is what it is. 2027 first round pick Steven Albert retires as well. He really did nothing. I mean, I think that's the essential thing. 2027 first round pick does not play a game till 2036. Kind of impacts how well he does as a full career. He played 4 years with us and was not on any of the World Series teams. Played 4 years with Baltimore, and that was it for him. He really never even got a shot. He was a first round pick. He had let me look on my spreadsheet. 91 potential at shortstop. Clearly didn't meet that. That's probably due to our own development and my fault. But sorry, Steven Albert. The other first round pick in 2027, Derek Fagan, suffered the same fate. Didn't come up till 2036. Only played 4 seasons. Mediocre baseball too. So we could call 2027 a bad draft, I guess. Even though potential ratings, you'd go back and be like, wow, that draft was pretty good. No. Hindsight says no, they weren't. World Series savior Kenny James retires at the age of 41. He actually didn't play very long if you look at it. If you remember him, we drafted, I think he was the 3rd round pick in the first year. He only had 84 potential, but he really outperformed what he was supposed to be. He didn't come up until 2030. And in that rookie season, he was phenomenal. 3.83 ERA. He, in the World Series, won us the last game in order to get us that World Series in 2030. He was also there for the 2033 one and the 2035 one. He played the majority of his career, if not, no, he played his whole career in Oakland until he retired. So he is going to be, he's like the guy that you think of, like, when I think of an Oakland A, a lifetime in Oakland A, it's Kenny James. Kenny James. He brings you 3 World Series. He was there for the 2 losses as well. He deserves his respect. Shout out Kenny James. We all love Kenny James here. Joe Garcia's partner in the outfield during the World Series run, Walker Jenkins, retires. Started his career in Minnesota. I believe he was a first-round pick, might have been a second-round pick of that draft. I think it was the same draft as Garcia, if not the year before that. Played a pretty good career. 258 average. He had 299 home runs, 1 away from number 300. Had his some of his best years here in Oakland. Then he had a couple good years in Minnesota as well after. Spent most of his career in Minnesota, but was here for the 2 World Series runs in 2030 and 2033. So good on him. He bounced around a little bit at the end there, but hey, good career for Walker Jenkins. Maybe this 2026 draft was just really good for us because Cyrus Yoder played for 14 seasons and he was one of our last picks. He was a fourth pick that year. But Donnell Haynes played for a long time. Cyrus Yoder plays 14 years, has 2,400 strikeouts. Almost all of it in Toronto. I think we dumped him in the, I don't think it was in the Tiedemann deal. Maybe it was in the Tiedemann deal. Or maybe he just got cut when we got rid of him, when we relinquished control. But great career for Cyrus Yoder. Yeah, he even peaked pretty late too. 4.12 ERA, but good for him. Good Cyrus Yoder. Julio Juarez had a good 14-year career as well for a number 1 overall pick. Nothing crazy, but 2,000 strikeouts. Good career for him. Ends up playing for a while in Minnesota. He gets 2 of the rings with us with Oakland, and hey, that's good enough for him. 3.96 ERA, one of the more efficient pitchers for us in that time. Another pick from the 2026 draft, Jonathan Kelly. We traded him pretty early on. He was in the Daniel Stewart trade in 2028. Traded him pretty early on. It looks like he actually had a losing record in his career, probably because he played in Chicago for so long, and then left. He got 1 World Series, I think, there with Chicago. Or 2. No, technically, I think they won 2 there. So he got 2 World Series. So good for Jonathan Kelly. We traded him. He's still got 2 rings. 2,000 strikeouts. Like, that 2026 draft, insane. One of the more disappointing guys of the 2026 draft was Johnny Logan. He actually had a really good year when he came up in 2031. He won 2 rings with us, but just kind of regressed really, really fast. So Too bad for Johnny Logan, but you know, still 7 years in the league, still hit 40 home runs, so you know, not bad, but definitely should have been a lot better than what he ended up being. David Bike, second round pick in 2028, ended up 1,700 hits, over 200 home runs. Pretty good career for him. Was here for the 2035 ring. Actually was here for most of the time with us, so good career for David Bike. First round pick in 2028, Shea Day. Nothing really special. He was around for a while with us, went to Colorado, but you know, decent career for Shea Day. 2026 draft, Derek Walker. He did win that MVP in 2039, as well as a home run champion, all-star appearance. He just had a crazy 2039 if you really look at it. But he was like, I think he was the third round pick in 2026. So he came up a little bit later, simply just because we had a lot of guys in the outfield at the time. But he still got one ring with us, made a couple other appearances, and hey, had a good career. He got an MVP. So shout out Derek Walker. And the other guy from the 2026 class, Frank Santiago, he got himself a Cy Young in 2034. He just had a fantastic career. He got his 2 rings with us, played his whole career besides that last year in Oakland, and had a great year. Got paid too, but 2,200 strikeouts, 2,300 innings. He was just another one, just a great pitcher. Honestly, probably the best pitcher that we had out of everybody. Now, we're still going to give all the respect to Kenny James for playing for as long as he did during the time that he did, but Frank also did the same thing. Julio, same thing. So all those pitchers ended up playing for us for a very, very long time, and respect to all of them for being as good as they were. And I thought he would be interesting. This is Jay Justice. This is that catcher that we drafted with the 6th pick, who was like a 6th round pick, who was like a 95 potential, who didn't come up till 2036. I even said he won't be good till he's like 30. Yeah, he wasn't good till he was 30. And he actually ended up being pretty good for a guy who was didn't play very long. 9 seasons, 900 hits. Came up really, really late. I think he literally was 30 years old when he came up. So we must have traded him at some point way long time ago in order to get him to this point. Last but not least, Joe Garcia, our generational talent that we drafted in that 2026 draft, which was an absolute gem. He ended up being, great. He didn't end up being like truly a generational talent, but he's probably a Hall of Famer. I believe that MLB The Show is not going to give it to him, but he ends up with 2,200 hits, 400 home runs, average of 261 over his career. He got the 2 rings with us in Oakland. He went to Philly, was pretty poor there. He went to the White Sox after they won and played there. You'll notice I did have to go back in a save because he retired sneakily, so I had to go back a little bit. So I'm catching him here before he sneaky retires and disappears. He did not go to the Hall of Fame when I ran it the first time. I don't think he's going to make it again this time. So ended up, hey, Joe Garcia, that was our generational talent, and that's probably that's it. That's what we had, and that's our Oakland A's roster. So yeah, that's it. That's all for our Oakland A's Moneyball rebuild and our extended version. Let me know what you think of this style. It's kind of different. I'm just trying something that I think might be interesting. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe I just rambled on for however long that video ended up being. So also, I would love to hear your thoughts. We ended up having some guys had some great careers. I think we might have had 3 Hall of Famers in Luis Arias, Mason Miller, and potentially Joe Garcia as a guy who could have been a Hall of Famer. I think one of our franchise favorites is Kenny James, and maybe some other pitcher was better than the other guys. So leave in the comments below what guys that you thought could have been Hall of Famers. Do you think Luis Arias deserved it? Do you think that Joe Garcia should have been a Hall of Famer and not just a guy that played on the White Sox his whole career as a trader? Should have been like Kenny James, the GOAT. So also, I am planning on doing more rebuilds like this. Leave in the comments as well if you have any teams that you'd like to see. I have a bunch of ideas of similar things, similar concepts to this Moneyball rebuild, and I just kind of want to do what you guys did. I also want to thank you guys so much for the support on this series so far. It's my best performing video ever, which is kind of crazy to me. So thank you again so much for coming, watching, and sticking with me as I rambled and stared at spreadsheets for the last several hours. Thanks. Adios.